Do you hate the media enough? I mean, you may think you do, but do you really? I mean, do you hate it to the degree that it really just deserves it at this point? Because today, like, if you had any questions, if you're thinking, well, they're not so bad. We've got the receipts. We've got the receipts. And today we're going to go through those receipts on some of our personal favorite gaslighting moments that the media has taken us through in the last several years, just to demonstrate that, kind of the ire is warranted. The frustration is warranted because they've got an important job to do and they're doing a completely different job. And that has caused a great deal of frustration. And it has caused a number of people, let's just say, I don't know, at least half the country, to significantly question anything they hear on the news. And that's probably a good thing. We're going to be talking about that and more on this episode of Making the Argument. As always, I am your host, Nick Freitas. With me in the studio, my beautiful bride, Tina, Queen of the Bees.
Hello, everyone.
And then we have our political prognosticator and resident historian, Christian Hines.
Look who's the dork now.
Oh, boy. All right, let me do a quick reference to this. Why do you always get us distracted on the introduction?
It's my thing.
They set up a Minecraft server with our MTA audience. So there's some Minecrafters within our community, and they set up their own server. And I've never played Minecraft. I always thought it was kind of stupid. I used to give Christian a bad time for it. And I said, all right, look, I'll go on our community server once and play. And then my son comes over, and then my daughter comes over, and they all get in the server. And the next thing I know, 12 hours later, I've been playing Minecraft with my kids.
You played Minecraft till 4 in the morning the other night.
Okay, we don't need to tell everything, honey.
He's turning into me.
We don't
4 a.m.
Look, it was a funny story.
They created a monster. Even our son-in-law's on there.
We'll get to it later. Anyways, that's not the point. That's not the topic today. The topic is not me fully embracing my darkness.
Crafting the argument. It's going to happen, I'm telling you. But no, today we get to talk about our favorite fourth estate, right?
Yes. And now let's say something right off the bat, right? Like, we're going to try to get all of our caveats in the beginning so that we don't have to do them throughout the entire show, right? But here's our primary caveat. All of us here believe in and truly respect the necessity of a free press, right? It is an absolutely essential component of a free society, is that you have to have news agencies that are able to operate outside of influence and control from the government. We all support that. We all believe it. We think it's a great thing. Does that mean that sometimes you're going to get news that you don't like or newspapers that you don't agree with and that there's going to be Absolutely. Absolutely. And our fight is not with reporters or journalists that go out there and essentially say, here's what I believe, here's my perspective, and I'm going to share that. We do have a massive problem with a press that will either lie to you about what they're doing or lie to you about their motivations. And it becomes so much more frustrating when you see journalist after journalist after journalist present themselves of, hey, we're just reporting the news as we see it, right? If you don't like it, that's not on us, because we're certainly not incorporating any of our bias into this process. No. We're engaging in objective journalism. That's it. That's all we're doing. And then they very deliberately push a particular narrative or a particular bias. That's our problem, right? You want to editorialize? Editorialize. Let me just say it right up front. When Rachel Maddow gets out there and does her overview of the news, I know exactly what I'm getting. I may not agree with it, and I don't like it when she lies or she says something that I think is blatantly dishonest, right? I never appreciate dishonesty. I don't care what side it comes from. But I have far less problem with Rachel Maddow getting out there and editorializing than I do with supposedly a mainstream reporter that's just supposed to be there to report the news and to try to give you an honest, comprehensive analysis of a particular story so that you can then review facts and come up with your own decisions on how you feel about something. I have a real problem with that guy who claims to be doing that job, who then editorializes, and that has just become rampant. So today what we're going to go over is some of, again, our favorite gaslighting moments from the media that has caused all of us to lose a great deal of confidence in the press. But you know what I don't lose confidence in? True Classic t-shirts. And let me tell you why. Because I, like any man, right, don't usually think a lot about how I shop. In fact, let me go ahead and tell you kind of a painful story. I come home one day late from work, and there's my wife in our bedroom with a bunch of t-shirts that didn't belong to me. And I'm thinking, what is this? Like, how could you? And she's like, no, baby, I bought them for you. Like, oh, which was crazy because usually, like any man, I buy my t-shirts, at Costco. But Tina wanted more. She wanted more for her man. She wanted a t-shirt that she thought would accentuate the parts of me that she likes. And I found the True Classic does exactly that, because what I love most about it is True Classic is, let's just say, a little bit more fitted in the chest, shoulders, and arms area, and then allows for a little bit more room around the stomach, which I'm working on, right? But it's, it allows for a little bit more comfort there. And so they're incredibly comfortable and a whole lot of confidence, because here's what I've learned. If your wife is buying you the clothes, it's because she wants to see you in them and might also like to take them off you. So go to trueclassic.com right now. You're going to put in /Nick, right? trueclassic.com/Nick, because they have bundles, right? It's not just about the t-shirts, right? I'm actually wearing one of the fitness t-shirts right now that I, use in the gym. They got the t-shirts. Now they got dress shirts. I actually love their dress shirts, and I typically hate wearing dress shirts. These are great. Plus, now they've got jeans. Like, I'm telling you right now, True Classic is about 80% of my wardrobe, and the rest of it is stuff I got as gifts that I didn't want, right? So go to trueclassic.com/Nick. You're going to bundle in there, and it's incredible how much you are going to save when you bundle and you get the t-shirts, get some jeans. Try it all out. They got the sweatshirt stuff. They got the shorts, everything. Try it all out. I promise you. trueclassic.com/Nick. Get the savings. You're going to love it. I do. No joke. It's like 80% of my wardrobe.
Did they have any flannels?
I don't think they have flannels yet.
Yeah, if anybody's wondering why Nick looks so good in his t-shirts, it's because they're True Classics. They're so much better.
Yeah.
So much better than other t-shirts.
Well, it was crazy.
Because Nick used True Classics. I started him on those like 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But only now True Classics was like, okay, you can show them our stuff. Yeah. So now we're showing you their stuff.
Yeah,
we love their stuff for real.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. Well, first things first, if we're going to give you an example of the press just being horribly intellectually dishonest, we're going to have to start with the Trump assassination attempt. Are we allowed to say that? Google doesn't allow you to really search for it at this point, because Google, that paragon of just, hey, we're just a platform. We just put the information out there and let you search for it with our really, really neat algorithm. We don't manipulate that at all. Actually, they do. Go into Google spacebar right now and just type in Trump assassination and watch what starts to show up in your options, because you're going to get a whole lot of options that have nothing to do with the actual Trump assassination attempt. But if you thought that was bad, if you thought the fact that Google is actively working to repress information, how about Washington Post and CNN? We got a couple of headlines up here. Trump escorted away after loud noises at Pennsylvania rally. Wow.
I remember that one.
Loud noises. Everyone knew, like almost immediately, it was gunshots. Almost immediately. It's not like the Washington Post was running around going, well, we're not sure yet. We really got to confirm what was going on. No. They tried to do this to make him look stupid. Same thing with CNN. Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at rally. Think about this for a second. Shots ring out. 2 people are wounded. 1 person is dead trying to protect his family. The Secret Service are jumping on top of him. And CNN's report is, well, yeah, because Trump fell down. You know what? CNN, look, I know you probably don't have a lot of people out there that have ever been shot or around guns. But it turns out when you get shot or when you get shot at, a pretty natural reaction is to fall or at least get low to the ground. So the idea that CNN would put this up there is just mind-blowing. I mean, not just because it's wrong, not just because it's really disingenuous, but because it's stupid. Like, who was the person at CNN who was like, no, this is a good idea. We'll trick people into thinking that Trump just fell down. You know, right. Like Joe Biden does.
You know that there's a enormous number of Democrats that have gone, just off the rails with saying that it was staged, it was totally fake.
Staged. Oh, they're still doing that. But honestly, when I saw these headlines, I was like, okay, guys, stop making stuff up. CNN didn't really do that. There's no way. And then I looked it up myself and I was thinking, are you kidding? This is real. This is actually real.
Well, there's 2 explanations for this: hubris or stupidity. And both of them come from a position of bias and wanting to try to manipulate the story or manipulate in the minds of people what actually took place. The stupid response is the idea that well, I hate Trump and I'm writing this headline, so I'm going to write it in a way that reflects the worst on him possible while not technically being a lie, right? Because they do that a lot. Well, it's not technically a lie. He did fall down and there were loud noises, right? So, fact check true.
Well, that's what's so crazy is that most of us saw this happen in real time on live TV, and him ducking down, getting back up, and it was very prolonged. Most of us saw that.
Yeah.
So this was really the height of don't believe your eyes, believe what we tell you.
Well, that's the stupidity part. The hubris part is just that. Oh, sorry. The stupidity is what I mentioned. The hubris part is we're so powerful that we feel like we can manipulate the narrative on this. And that's the part where you got to look at CNN and be like, you realize CNN is mostly watched in airports where people don't have an option because the airport just has it on, right?
Yeah, this is a theme that I think we might end up circling back around to repeatedly throughout this show, which is that, quite frankly, once people realize that an institution has been ideologically hijacked by a certain group of people, in this case being leftists, they tend to stop giving it a level of legitimacy and seriousness that it traditionally used to hold. And that gets back to your caveat, right? I'm not going to repeat the caveat, but you're right that objective fact-based reporting is obviously essential in any free society. Of course it is. We don't want to live in a world where we have Pravda, but unfortunately we do live in a world where we have Pravda, right? And Pravda is currently serving the Leviathan. Well, actually Pravda is part of the Leviathan.
Yeah.
And what's happened is that over time, it used to be for a long time that if you were in the center or if you were on the right of any variation, you kind of stomached and put up with what was very subtle left-wing bias.
Yeah.
It wasn't
I don't
overt.
think it was really subtle.
And
well, by comparison, it was.
By comparison to what it is today.
I'm not so sure it was always super subtle. What I think is the contrast is here now. We didn't have a contrast before. So there's a lot of reporting that happened back in the day, like when I was young, when you were a kid or what, where we didn't have the other side reporting. We didn't have our own side reporting too.
We didn't have Twitter.
So what we had is we had left-wing media and we really had no way of knowing how biased it was back then because we didn't have the contrast. And now we have the contrast and we have Twitter.
That's a good point. And I can see where you're coming from that, especially because, let's be honest, Elon's purchase of Twitter and converting it into X in some ways was a huge deal for the right because it finally gave us a platform where we could talk about the news
and not
without having to filter it through, outlets like CNN or ABC or CBS or MSNBC or any of them, which is big, right? I mean, this is a prime example, but we're going to be going through many others. The point that I'm trying to get across, though, is that for so long, we kind of put up with the left weasel, the long march to the institutions, right? We put up with, the first few phases of that.
Yeah.
But now it's gotten to a point where nobody is deluding themselves into thinking that these people are objective, fact-based reporters. No, they're propagandists for the Democratic Party, and it blatantly so. There's so many examples of this. But before we jump too deep into analyzing that, I think that there's some more examples that we want to go through.
We got some more examples. So these were two of the most blatant ones that were put out, in part because they were put out by the Washington Post and CNN. So it's not as if we're talking about some podunk, whatever local newspaper with an editor that, and a staff of one. This was the major narrative going out from news agencies, which we're supposed to respect. Look, democracy dies in darkness, Washington Post. And again, it just goes to demonstrate that this is why you're not trustworthy. It's not because we're conspiracy theorists. It's not because, we just don't like news that doesn't, correspond with our political views. It's no, this is you. You've shown us who you are, and there's no doubt anymore. And now this is why every once in a while, Tina and I will be talking, and a news report will come up, and it's like, oh my gosh, did you hear they said this? I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. And it used to be, I don't care, but what I really meant by that was I'm angry. And now it's legitimately, I don't care. I don't care what they have to say. I don't care about their analysis. I don't care about their input because they squandered it, right? They broke faith. They broke trust.
And to give the audience the idea, I have to say this because I know Nick never will, because Nick doesn't like to self-promote himself. So somebody else has to do it for him. That's why I'm here. To to give the audience an idea, when Nick says he doesn't care when, say, the Washington Post comes out with a story, because you're in the legislature in Virginia. Washington Post is, you know, one of the major newspapers that covers Virginia politics. Obviously, it covers national politics as well. But when you say you don't care, you actually don't care. And the reason why is because your potential reach across all platforms swamps the Washington Post's circulation. I mean, you have over 1 million followers on both Instagram and YouTube each. You have over 100,000 followers on Twitter. Our podcasts usually get more views than the Washington Post has in their like daily circulation.
Well, here's what I would say. Like, if you're talking about their daily paper circulation, yeah, it's more. If you're talking about their online circulation, obviously that's higher for them. The difference is, and we point this out to people, I point this out to my colleagues all the time, is that when the Washington Post does an article, that doesn't mean that everyone is with a online subscription of the Washington Post sees every article. They might go to the site, they might read a couple of them, they might see some headlines, but that's not the same as when you put out content and people actually consume it because they want to hear from you. But let's go to this next part too, and this is the whole with Meta, because this is another thing that has been really frustrating. I think Zuckerberg's done and said some things recently that made me think that maybe he's starting to get it. I'm not saying like on board or what, but maybe just starting to get it that this overwhelmingly one-sided version of everything is not good for a company or for a news source. But Facebook has got to have one of the worst algorithms I have ever seen. I have never seen, like Instagram, not so much. Instagram generally puts stuff in my feed that I would want to see, right? Facebook is horrible. Like if you look at my Facebook feed right now, I might have commented on something that, like, you know, Comrade Vogue put out and said, yeah, this is ridiculous and this is why. And the next thing I know, my feed is just slammed with like literally communist Facebook pages. It's like they are pushing it. You see this right now. In Wokeness on Twitter put this out. It says, breaking, Facebook is now censoring the iconic image of Trump's defiant fist. It's now flagged as misinformation. So he goes, you shared a photo. Independent fact checkers reviewed a similar photo and said it was altered in a way that could mislead people. Facebook determined your post has the same altered photo and added a notice to the post. People who reportedly share false information. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm not saying this the way it should be stated. Go back to it right here. This is how it originally came out.
Babe. Say it right.
You have shared a photo. Independent fact checkers reviewed a similar photo, said it was altered in ways that could mislead people. Facebook determined your post has the same altered photo and added a notice to the post. People who repeatedly share false information might have their posts moved lower in the newsfeed, so other people are less likely to see them. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? Would you, Facebook poster? That's how it was originally. Yeah.
You're not hiding Trump memes under your floorboards.
Yeah, we have searched the entire house. Like, where are your Trump paraphernalia? Yes.
It is a little bit crazy. I mean, we talk about Meta. I do notice that. So I consume a lot of political media, social media. And so I have taught the algorithm to send me political stuff. Well, as soon as the shooting happened, as soon as that happened and it kind of cycled through for about 24 hours, I no longer received anything political almost at all, which tells me they've altered it so that less political stuff is coming to me. I'm assuming they're doing that with everybody. And so now I'm getting mostly like cat videos and cow videos and food videos.
Which, let's be honest, is the other part of your
But the thing is I'm going, I consume this stuff. I like this stuff and I share this stuff. I should be receiving a lot of it. Yeah. And I wasn't receiving any after this. And that was really crazy. And then also Meta did come out and admit that they did that wrongfully.
Well, and this, you know, at least they apologize. That is a difference from some of these other stories that we're going to be going through because there's so many cases.
Well, and part of it is because, again, Meta is supposed to be a platform. They're not supposed to be a news agency, right? This is one of the biggest issues that we've had. In fact, we did an interview with a man named Andrew Ritta, who actually worked in the Trump White House and actually works in the technology sector. We're going to be posting that interview here pretty shortly. He actually talked about some of the things that he witnessed from inside the White House and what was going on with respect to the way that algorithms were operating, with respect to the way that the government was influencing platforms to engage in activity that would typically clearly fall under the realm of a publisher. And for those that are wondering, the difference is that a publisher can be sued for libel. A platform is just a platform, right? Think of like your phone service, right? They don't monitor, or sorry, they're not supposed to monitor or censor what you say, but these groups increasingly are. So this also came out. Facebook has officially admitted that it wrongly censored the historic, iconic photo of former President Trump pumping his fist with his ear bleeding after the tragic event that occurred during his rally in Pennsylvania, saying this was an error. Now, here's what I want to point out, because there's going to be some people that will say, well, Nick, they apologize. What's the big deal? Do you remember when Elon Musk took over X and he went through and he started to clean house and he started firing people? Now, it is not unusual when new management comes in to do like an efficiency component and figure out who's needed, who's not. And, changes take place in leadership. People get fired. He got rid of close to 80%, 80% of the people working at X. And everyone was like, you're not going to be able to run Twitter with this. And they asked him about it, like, well, okay, X is actually still running and it's actually doing better. And since you got rid of 80% of the staff, that's a lot of overhead that's gone. How did you do it? He goes, it turns out when you don't have a lot of people sitting around and their entire job is essentially censoring people, you don't need that many people to run a platform. Why was that ever censored in the first place? And the answer is because Meta still has a lot of people sitting around with their sole job is to censor.
Right.
And the people engaging in that censorship are not independent fact checkers. The people engaging in that censorship, or maybe there are independent fact checkers, but those independent fact checkers are not so independent. They have their own bias. They have their own approach. And that's what they choose to selectively censor.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on here. But
you brought this up earlier, right? Googling assassination attempt on, and
yes,
look who's missing.
Oh, yeah. So this was another thing. That,
Andrew Johnson's on there.
Yeah. So if you type in assassination attempt on, it goes Reagan, Truman, Ronald Reagan, Gerald Ford, Andrew Johnson, FDR, Seward. Oh, my God.
That's an old callback.
Trump's not in there. Trump's not in there, though, people. I wonder why. Is that Google being intellectually honest with respect to the way that it runs its platform? Or are they actively? This is why, again, when we talk about 2020 and people talk about like stuffing ballot boxes, I have no doubt that stuffing ballot boxes happen, especially in certain areas. But when we talk about the fix being in, ladies and gentlemen, that is a far bigger fix. That is a far bigger fix.
Right. Even when I typed in just last night, I wanted to see if this was real, because that's kind of how I am. I'll see these accusations and I'll go, let me check. Yeah, it was actually real. It really happened. And when I did just a Donald J. Trump or President Donald Trump Google search, the first things it gave me were things about Biden, things about Kamala Harris, and then it gave me Donald Trump's in trouble because of X, Y, and Z. Donald Trump fraud case, blah, blah, blah. Like anything negative about Trump. And then you get to his actual website and various things like that. They just kick things to the next
give you guys
page.
an idea, I'm doing this right now.
He just did it right now.
And look at my
George Wallace and Lenin show up.
Yeah, it's a shame that guy missed.
At the very bottom, you got attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Assassination of Donald Trump.
Those were previous things that I've been to. So I already, in my search history, to give you an idea of how biased this is, I already in my search history have stuff on Trump's assassination attempt at the bottom here. We have the YouTube clip on it, and then I have a Wikipedia article on it. So
well, that's stuff you already pulled up, but all the ones with the magnifying glass are what they're offering.
That's the point that I'm trying to get across. Yeah. I've already searched specifically for this event, so you would think it'd be even more likely that I would see something on it, but instead I'm being shown George Wallace and Lenin.
Yeah, it is the selective curation of the news. I've had ones before when we've been doing show prep, and so I'm in there and I'm Googling information for articles and things like that. And like, I can't find articles or I can't find things that I know exist. And then I go over to DuckDuckGo and I'll search there and then boom, it's in the top 5.
Everything you needed right there.
It's in the top 5. When we were looking for stuff for this episode and I was trying to find articles that I knew existed, and I would type in specific words in order to try to get them to come back, I couldn't find it. As soon as I go to X and I type it in, boom, right there.
I did that as well. There was there was a link or two that I discovered that haven't quite yet been put into our notes here, but Actually, this is kind of a good point to bring it up here. Do you remember when a certain reporter came out and said, I'm repeating this for the 1,000th time. Journalists don't pick a side. Here it is. Let me say, Chris Cillizza from CNN in 2016. Let me say for the billionth time, reporters don't root for a side, period. He has been mocked for this for 8 years now.
Good.
And if you ever want an example of media gaslighting on the fly, for those who are listening to us, you know, if they're driving, if they're at home, if they're on YouTube watching this, and you ever see something and you're like, man, I really want to like pull up an example of media gaslighting. Go to X, type in journalists don't pick a side, and just press search. And you will be shown a flood of tweets. Some of them will be 5 years old, 8 years old. Some of them will be 5 minutes old of screenshots of the media absolutely gaslighting the American public. And by the way, they're all picking a side. In fact, the top example here in this search is, well, and my mouse just froze, but there we go. Okay, at the top here. Here's an example from election night in 2020. Whenever I hear that journalists don't root for a side, I'm reminded that they do, in fact, root for a side. And this is from The New Yorker, who has a headline literally titled, American Democracy Has Survived Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. And again, this is we're not talking about just the editorial pages on these. It would be one thing if it was just relegated to the editorial page. It's not. It's not.
Well, even on news that has a lot of just fact-based news, they will present those facts in packaging, which is got a skew to it.
Yeah. Well, and again, I now here's the part that is going to be curious to watch. Zuckerberg did an interview shortly following the Trump assassination attempt. And he even said, he goes, yeah, I'm going to be honest. When I saw him stand up and pump his fist and go fight, that was, one of the coolest things I'd seen.
He said that was one of the most badass things I've ever seen. And he said, you can't help as an American to feel emotional at that as an American. And so I kind of get why people love this guy.
Yeah.
Now, he still wasn't saying he loved the guy.
No.
But he did. He was fleetingly very honest about the kind of emotion that image, elicits.
All right, let's go.
Which is why you're going to see more gaslighting, because people know that we are in the midst of what the Zoomers call a vibe shift.
Yeah. Well, let's next go to another one of our most favoritist gaslighty of gaslight moments, and that is Kamala Harris was never the border czar. So here we have from our good old friends at Vox, which can always be trusted, right? Harris was never border czar, experts say, despite Republican claims. This is another thing, too, that has become almost like shorthand for me ignoring something, is whenever I hear a obvious left-wing bias start with experts say. Like I've gotten to the point, there was a tweet that put out that I kind of crushed the other day, and it was Kamala Harris growing up, the daughter of I forget what it was, some sort of scientific researcher, means that she has a lifelong, experience growing up in a house which respects science that could really help her out during the presidency. Experts say. This is from like Scientific American. And I think I immediately tweeted, I'm like, oh yeah, because that's exactly how that works. My mom was an OB nurse. She's delivered, hundreds, if not, more babies. So yeah, I guess that has all been transferred to me in the bloodstream. So just sit back, ma'am, and start breathing. I'm going to catch this thing, right? It's so ridiculous. But as long they feel like it's the moment they put experts say, we're all just supposed to say, oh, well, I guess I guess we trust the experts. All right. So yeah. In this article, they went on to explain that, well, she was never technically, shown as being the border czar. It was never a technical label that she was given. And again, it's one of these things where the press does this a lot. And what you will notice is when Republicans do it, right? When Republicans do it, when they engage in language that is not even hyperbolic, but it's just they use maybe a different term to describe something, the press will zero on the specific term that was used, or the fact checkers will zero onto what they think you meant by that phrase as opposed to what the phrase actually means. And then they'll say, oh, see, this is false. But when the left does it, the fact checkers are like, well, context is needed, or this is mostly true. Or this is true. She was never the border czar. She was never the border. Okay, so let's ask the first question up front. What the heck does it mean to be a czar? So typically what this is a presidential appointment to a particular task. So you'll see like the drug czar, right? What is the drug czar? The drug czar is someone that is kind of a special advisor to the president that works between the White House and various executive branch agencies in order to deal with or address a particular problem. And they generally have authority associated with this position, and then they report directly back to the president, and they call that a czar. Where does the term czar come from? Well, it comes from, Russia. We think of the Russian czars, but really it's a variation of the term Caesar. So what it essentially means is that they're in charge of that particular thing. Now, is everybody in the federal government who has been put into a position of direct authority to tackle a specific problem, are they automatically given the title czar? No. Do they have the same duties and responsibilities that would be associated with it?
Yeah.
Yes. So the real question here is not the term czar. The real question is, was Kamala Harris given the border and requisite authority and oversight in order to do that job? Was she given that? The answer to that one is, yep, sure was. Let's go to...
I think one of the reasons why we have this huge pushback right now, they're trying to say we don't have a problem at the border. There's no problem. Like, we're fixing everything. Everything's going just fine. Just don't look at everything burning down around you. It's fine. Well, we know they don't really believe that. And this is how we know they don't believe it, is because they're trying to get a lot of daylight between her and the border now.
Yeah. So the news now is all Kamala Harris was never the border czar. Republicans claim she was the border czar. That's false. Experts say that. But back in 2021, Business Insider, here's one of the headlines. Biden is giving Kamala Harris the thorniest issue to oversee as vice president, immigration. And then you look at the President Joe Biden will tap Vice President Kamala Harris to run point on immigration. She was, for all intents and purposes, the border czar. That was what she was doing. In fact, there was an article by Axios that came right out and called her the border czar. There was this funny side-by-side comparison where Axios Today did a headline where it says Kamala Harris was never the border czar. And then it goes back to an article they did, I think, back in 2021, where it's Kamala Harris becomes border czar for Joe Biden. Right? This is the sort of, and that was the same news agency. It was Axios in both cases. What's the next article we got on this one? So I think it was, Fox News. Yeah, Democrat who criticized VP Harris' handling of the southern border endorses her for president. Representative Don Davis of North Carolina also floated the idea of Governor Roy Cooper as Harris's running mate, blah, blah, blah. But basically, this was another guy. There were actually Democrats. There was especially some ones in Texas that were openly critical of what the Biden administration were doing because they represent districts that have been overwhelmingly affected. And if anybody buys the propaganda that they've got the border under control, go look at the month-over-month numbers of people crossing the border. Look at where it ended during the Trump administration and look at where it's been since then. And it's the worst in U.S. history.
This is the Axios article that you were referring to, by the way.
Biden puts Harris in charge of border crisis. Can I also say something? One of the reasons why I believe that Biden did this was because if you think of it, when Kamala Harris kind of had this like really, really easy rise to power. We're not going to get into some of the details of how she rose to power. She had kind of this easy rise to power within California politics, right? A lot of it was knowing the right people, being at the right place at the right time, the whole deal.
Biblically knowing the right people.
Tina had to go there.
I had to.
All right. And then she becomes a U.S. senator. All right. So she didn't have a record she could run on as attorney general. She didn't have a record she could run on as a U.S. senator. She ran for president. Democrats openly rejected her. And then Joe Biden picks her because he specifically said, I'm going to pick a black woman to be vice president.
Woman
right?
of color.
Okay. Woman of color. Brings her on and then gives her an opportunity to actually tackle a difficult problem as vice president. Like this would have been like her ultimate credential if she wanted to follow Biden as the next Democrat presidential candidate, would have been to fix the border issue. Mm-hmm. And for any Democrat out there that is saying, well, we would have, but the Republicans killed the bill because they want the issue more than they want the solution. Ladies and gentlemen, when Trump left office, it's not like some sort of change took place within the federal government where all of a sudden Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did not have the same power, funding, and authority to continue to do what the Trump administration was doing, which had a very noticeable, arguably the most noticeable effect in people crossing the border illegally in our history, right? He didn't do any of it. In fact, he rejected it. He threw out the remain in place, which is remain on your side of the border where we check your refugee status. He threw out border wall construction. Right, he threw out the COVID restrictions, which actually, elevated what it took to get into the country.
His administration even fought states who were trying to supplement it themselves.
He threw all of it out and then said, well, if we don't get this bill with new powers and new authorities, we can't do the job. That is an absolute fundamental lie. There's no way to word that other than it's a lie.
Well, and she's on video many, many times saying that she wanted open borders. She has always been pro open borders. So her being in charge of the border was really just, how do we streamline how to process them through into the country? Yeah. It had nothing to do with stopping them from coming.
And to give you guys an idea of just how thorough the gaslighting is on this particular issue, there's just link after link, article after article, all parroting the same talking points, the same lie that she was, that she played no role in this, that this was a myth. It's the whole Republicans pounce type of thing.
Yeah.
Here's Time saying Kamala Harris was never Biden's border czar. Here's what she really did. I've got another one here.
Well, part of what they kept claiming was, she was getting down to the root causes of why people are leaving. And so her whole effort was, we're going to spend U.S. tax dollars and we're going to run a bunch of ads and articles and radio spots in places like Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, et cetera, essentially saying, don't come to the United States. Oh, okay, but you're not going to actually do anything. You're right. You're right. That's what's going to stop people from coming, not the fact that it's illegal. You're not going to actually do anything to empower the actual people responsible for protecting the border. You're not going to do anything to actually harden the border. You're not going to do any of those practical, positive things that we know work. You're just going to run a bunch of ads saying you shouldn't come. Oh, I'm sure that'll work.
There's this fantastic article from the Free Press, which is a great title for for this place. I actually really like the Free Press because I feel like that, they're on the right, but I think that they show receipts and links in a lot of their stuff. And this is titled Gaslighting the Public on Kamala Harris as Border Czar. It's a great article. I highly recommend that people read it. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but there's a few things in here that I want to point out that I think are going to tee up the rest of the conversation for today's podcast. So they mentioned the thing that you brought up earlier about Axios, right? In March 2021, Axios published a story with the headline that literally says, Biden put Harris in charge of border crisis. And then it goes on to say, and today, this came out a few days ago, on July 24th, 2024, this same reporter at the same outlet has a story headlined, Harris border confusion haunts her new campaign. It reports that in early 2021, it was Biden enlisted Vice President Kamala Harris to help with a slice of the immigration issue.
Yeah.
And this has created a bunch of confusion, and it's opened the door to, again, Republicans pouncing on her, right? And then it goes on to say, it basically keeps saying that, it's playing around with the English language and how dangerous that is when you're trying to gaslight people this way. And then it goes on to say, this is the best part of the article, where it brings up, nor was Axios alone in correcting the record when it came to Harris. Time weighed in with its own dispatch. So did USA Today and CBS and the New York Times with their title for their article, which is Why Republicans Keep Calling Kamala Harris the Border Czar.
Yeah.
And on and on. It should be noted that this is a little more than ridiculous, since no one in the United States government is technically a czar of anything. How does one fact check that which is only an informal title? And that's the fact that Republicans keep getting to. The fact of the matter is that Joe Biden did say, he had press conferences, press releases. This was all on record. You can go back and you can do the searches yourself in 2021, where he said, I'm putting her in charge of this problem. This is her point to take. And that's why everybody called her a border czar. And you know who also called her that? The New York Times called her that. Nonetheless, it was an informal title widely used. Here's the New York Times in 2021. And this is why I say I like the Free Press, because they have the links. Now, if I pull this up, you're going to get, paywalled. So I won't pull it up here. But again, they have the receipts here, and they say, go ahead.
Let's read. Yeah, it says, nevertheless, it was an informal title widely used. So kind of what I explained earlier. Here's the New York Times in 2021. Ms. Harris will also soon be taking over work from a departing official with years of experience. Last week, Roberta S. Jacobson, the former ambassador to Mexico chosen as Mr. Biden's border czar, said that she would retire from government. She said she was happy to see Ms. Harris assume the work of stemming migration from Central America. And here's the Washington Post that same year describing the vice president as taking on the lead role on the overall border and regional issue. Like, again, this is so. Here's the thing that you're gonna ask on some level. Like, okay, why would they do something so blatant? They don't expect you to check them. They don't expect, if you do check them, they don't expect you to be able to find it because either through paywalls or through other things that they will do. We've already seen this before on places like Wikipedia where they will automatically update information in it in order to change what was there before in order to fit the new narrative, right? This is what they do because they're in the bag, right? They're in the bag. They are openly advocating. They're openly hoping that Kamala Harris wins. They know that this is a really, really touchy subject because immigration issues are at the top of the list of things that are driving Americans to the polls. And increasingly, it's not just the right? It's a lot of people that live in these cities. It's working class Democrats who can't take their kids to school in New York City because it's being used as temporary shelter for migrants. And we're not talking about migrants. We're not talking about women and children. We're not talking about unaccompanied minors. We're talking about throngs of young males between the ages of like 20 and 26 that are now in these environments. And people are looking around going, wait a second, I pay taxes for that school. I'm working hard. I'm trying to, and now my kid can't go to school. Or my daughter can't walk down the street because she's afraid of being accosted. And then
where are the women and children that everybody parades across the camera? Where are they? Because most of what we see are working age men.
Well, then the response that we get is, well, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're whatever it is, right? It's the same old. And that's always the strategy, right? We're going to change the news. We're going to change the narrative. And you're just supposed to believe us because we say so. And don't you know how powerful we are at the Washington Post? Don't you know how powerful we are at Google? Mm-hmm. And the question is, yes, we know how powerful you are. We also don't care. And you're lying to us. Well,
I want to point out one thing is I think the media, they're a little slow on the uptake, just like print media is almost out because everybody uses digital media now. And a lot of these magazine companies and newspaper companies are have been going belly up for a few years because everything's digital. Well, they're also seeing, like, legacy media is seeing their share just shrink and shrink and shrink. I mean, most of us now, we have other ways of getting our media besides turning on CNN or MSNBC or ABC. And so I think a lot of these media organizations used to really rely on the fact that they kind of had a lock on the market. Like, there wasn't really a way to figure out if they were lying. There wasn't really an alternate, there wasn't another side of the story that you could easily and readily get. And so now we have a lot of different ways to get media. So when they try to do something like this and completely just ice everything out and gaslight us into believing something, it's a lot harder to clinch the deal, I guess, because there's an alternative now. I mean, when I watch breaking news happening, the legacy news media is way too slow. I'll just go over to Twitter and pull it up because I can just go through and see updates just in real time on Twitter. But in legacy news, it takes forever for them to update articles. And then they literally just regurgitate whatever section and cut and paste it down. And so you end up reading the same article 57 times just trying to get an update on it. And so I think legacy media has really lost their grip on the flow of information. And so they're operating right now as if they still have that grip. And I think they're sorely mistaken. They are really kind of becoming a relic now. And there's too many alternatives for them to be able to maintain that type of gaslighting.
Well, their argument is that, on Twitter, you can go on Twitter and you can get headlines, or you can get reporting on something like that. But the problem is that it hasn't been vetted, it hasn't been looked at, it hasn't been analyzed in order to determine what actually happened. And look, there's an element of truth to that, right? Because obviously anybody can go on Twitter and say anything, right? So there's an element of truth to that. The problem is that they didn't do that. Right. They weren't going through and it's like, hey, we're going to carefully analyze this in order to determine what actually happened.
Oh, no.
So, and that was.
I think that the same way that legacy media built up reputations and caused themselves to become a trusted source, I think the way that they cause themselves to become a trusted source is to be right over and over and over again, to where then they could start tweaking things and doing that. Well, just like on Twitter, you know who's going to say something real and who's not. We kind of know who the bad actors are that put up a bunch of fake crap, and you can tell who's pretty consistently right. There were a lot of photos coming through Twitter that weren't coming up on legacy media during the Trump shooting.
Yeah.
And there were people coming in and going, that's not the shooter. This is that's from some other thing. Well, turns out it really was the shooter. The people were correct. You know, the guy laying on top of the roof, and this, you know, coming through Twitter, people going, oh, we don't know if that's real. Well, turns out it's real. Yeah. You know, there's enough people offering real news, and they're consistently right that you start learning who's real and who's not.
Well, and that's the whole point is when you have a marketplace for the news, which is to say that people can go in and freely compete. That's what having a free press means. It doesn't mean a couple of different corporations get to run the whole show. It means people can freely compete. Right. And what they're happening right now is they don't like the fact that there's so many platforms now where everyday people who maybe don't have an agenda, or who at least have somewhat, you know, an ounce of integrity with respect to their agenda, can report stuff, and all of a sudden they scoop the news.
There's this other article that I just brought up that I know it's not in our outline, but I have to bring it up because we're talking about immigration right now, even though we're at the end of this segment. If you guys remember the murder of Laken Riley back in February, she was a student, I think, at the University of Georgia, who was like out jogging one night, and then she was kidnapped and murdered by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela that had come into the U.S. illegally across the southern border. Well, here's how the media ended up covering that story. This is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is a large newspaper that covers Georgian events, the state, not the country. And here's what their headline is. New top Georgia Republicans quickly tied the killing of a student on the University of Georgia campus to President Joe Biden's immigration policies, decrying what they see as lax border controls after a suspect from Venezuela was charged with murder. And you know what's funny is Leftism for You, which is a great account. Yeah. Did they pounce or seize on the issue? Yeah. Leftism for You replied and said, man comes to the
U.S. from Venezuela illegally, and by doing so becomes illegal immigrant. Illegal immigrant murders American student. How dare Republicans blame this on illegal immigration? I mean, we have gotten to the point where it is that stupid. It is that stupid. And you're looking at this. You're looking at this with from the perspective of the mainstream media, and you got to be saying is it stupidity or hubris? And I think it's gotten to the point where it's actually both. You know, I always say that I don't chalk up to malice that which is more easily assigned to ignorance or stupidity. We're at a point right now where the hubris, the malice, has gotten so stupid that it's just ripe for mocking.
I think that the reason why we see through it so much is because there's a lot of us who woke up to this a long time ago. So we can really see through it. We can see that they're all on message. They're all doing the message, you know? And I think the media right now isn't targeting us. They're targeting the people who may be swayed one way or the other based on how they report. These are low information voters. And unfortunately, we have a lot of low information voters. You've got people that always vote on the left, no matter what. People that vote on the right, no matter what. You've got people that are well informed, maybe on both sides, just depends on if they really believe it or not. And then you've got these swath of people in the middle, and we call it their independents, and they kind of go whichever way they kind of feel like it that year. Yeah. And so I tend to think, I mean, a lot of people kind of wear it like a badge of honor that they're an independent, and they just base it on, you know, the candidate and the character of the candidate. All I see when I see that is somebody that has no principles and no sense of real morality at all, because the two sides couldn't be further apart. They're so different. And so if just the way something's reported one way or the other could just sway you, you are exactly what I call a low information voter, and you are their target. And so it's like, if you don't want to be that, then you better start doing a little digging. Like I said before, when I see certain images and I go, I'm not sure that's true, I'll go and I'll research it myself, because I don't want to go out there and spout out something that turns out not to have been true. That's an embarrassment. I want to be saying something that I reasonably can expect is true and has been fact-checked. So I've got to fact-check it myself a little bit. And I just feel like if people would just do that, they wouldn't be able to be so gaslit. No. I think there's a reason why the leftist media gaslights their people, their side, is because it works on them. They're incredibly gullible. They just want to be lied to. And that's who they're targeting. They're not targeting the people watching this show.
Well, look, I'm going to be honest about this. That is a problem on the right too. We do have people on the right that just want to be, they want to
believe anything.
They want their thoughts repeated back to them.
Bias confirmation.
Yeah, they want their thoughts repeated back to them as intensely as possible. Let me finish my statement before you guys all respond to it. There is that category of people can be on either side of the aisle. I think the difference is that the left has become so comfortable with the idea that so many culturally shaping institutions just repeat their narrative. And here's what it's come down to. I have talked to plenty of the people on the left that have no idea what we actually believe. No idea what the actual motivation is behind what we believe. You don't find that as much on the right.
Right.
Most of the people I know on the right, they understand why the left believes what they want. They understand what their motivation is. Why? Because they are culturally inundated with it, right? They can't turn on the news or listen to a song or watch a movie or watch a Netflix documentary that doesn't reinforce some sort of left-wing narrative. But if you're on the left, you can go through a good portion of your life not truly having to be exposed to a proper representation of right-wing ideas. And so, listen, I don't want to say that this is just a problem on the left. This is a problem with people in general when people get to a point where all they want is bias confirmation.
Well, I was also just talking about people that are in the middle, that middle swath of people that kind of sway one way or sway the other way. And they're the ones that decide every single election. The media has been incredibly successful in framing things up in order to gaslight those people. Yeah. And those are the people who mailers work on them, phone calls work on them, these texts work on them. Like there's all of these things that work really well on people that they don't really care one way or the other. But if you make a really good, nice, sexy sounding argument, then they'll go ahead and go with you until somebody else comes and talks to them. So it's pretty much whoever's the last person to talk to them and whoever has talked to them the most is the one they're going to go ahead and vote for.
I will say something needs to be said about that point that you brought up earlier, just a minute ago, about how conservatives or those on the right, many of them can speak fluent leftist, but leftists cannot speak rightism.
Very few.
I've noticed that when I was in college, like I was able to, I didn't believe in any of this, but like I was able to articulate what progressives believed, what liberals believed. They were never, I would sometimes get questions, why do you believe in this? I never have met somebody when I was in college that was able to articulate, neither professors nor my fellow classmates that were able to articulate why people on the right believed what they believed. It was totally alien to them. And so then they would always come up with these caricatures, right? It's the whole, you're a bigot, you're a sexist, you're a racist, you're on the wrong side of history, as if history has some sort of, definite, well, it does have a definite arc. It's progressing towards chaos, but like it's just incredible how I do think that the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority, especially younger demographics of people on the right, fully can articulate and fully can understand why the left believes what they believe, their universalizing mission. Yeah. And the left are just incapable of understanding.
Well, I
the reverse.
We did a whole episode once where I gave, we called it was like a Steel Man episode, where I sat here and the whole purpose was I was going to give the left-wing argument for all the major issues.
You and I did that back and forth.
Yes, for abortion, for guns, for healthcare. I did the left-wing argument. I said my whole goal is I'm going to give a left-wing argument in a way that if somebody on the left heard it, they'd be like, yes, that's exactly why we believe that. And then I was going to go back and show why this doesn't work, and here's why. And I had somebody tell me once, because I shared a story of somebody coming into an office once when I was working at a Republican headquarters, and somebody came in and said, how do I stop this hate mail from coming to my house? It was a flyer from Mitt Romney. Right? It was a mailer from Mitt Romney. Yeah, not exactly the chief architect of hatred, right? But that's where it was. It didn't matter. She disagreed with it. It was an older lady. She disagreed with it, and therefore it was hateful. And we sat there and we had a conversation. I had a bunch of people in the comments on the left go like, that never happened. No, I promise you it happened.
It happened. She talked to me first because I was alone in the office, and then Nick came in and finished her off. I'm just kidding.
We sat there and talked, and I remember it was this idea, and I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with this, where once we got into the point where it was, okay, can I just explain to you why I think this? And shared personal experiences and shared one. All of a sudden, it was a different conversation. But I can't tell you how many times someone, well, why do you believe this? And I'll go through, well, okay, here's the empirical arguments. Here's the other arguments. Here's the reason why I think this works. And they'll look at me after I get done with like a 5-minute explanation and be like, I just don't understand why you're so closed-minded. Like, okay. Can you please explain what you think I believe? And they're not able to do it, but I'm the closed-minded one. And again, it's not that there's some sort of objective standard for what constitutes closed-minded versus open-minded. What it is I'm on the left, therefore I'm automatically open-minded. And if you don't say what I want to hear, you are automatically closed-minded. And it doesn't matter that you can articulate my position better than I can. It doesn't matter that you can actually bring up more, facts or logically consistent arguments. None of that matters because it's not left. Open-minded is a title that you get when you slavishly repeat whatever the left-wing ideologues tell you to repeat. And that's what's become so frustrating.
I will say that I was surprised at how many comments I've seen both in our circle group and on YouTube from that last episode that you and I did together. And Tina as well, the debate between classical liberalism and neo-reactionaryism. Because the comment, I mean, every now and then there'd be a comment that'd be like, whatever, I disagreed with, either Nick or Christian for whatever reasons. But there were a lot of comments from people that were like happy to see that there was a debate going on. And maybe it's because I've known you for so long and we're just such good friends that it didn't really cross my mind that people would think about it that way, because there were a lot of people that were like, oh man, it's so great to see this like debate where, this discussion of ideas where you guys vehemently are disagreeing, but it's not getting nasty or anything like that. And again, from my perspective, like I didn't even think about that.
Well, debates are fun. Debates are fun when both sides are committed to a certain, when both sides are committed to critical thinking, which is to say, critical thinking is not just, I'm going to question everything. Critical thinking is, I'm going to use the laws of logic, the law of identity, the law of the excluded middle, the law of non-contradiction. I'm going to use reason. I'm going to use empirical evidence. I'm going to use these things, and we're going to have an argument, both deductive, inductive. And at the end of it, we're going to be able to admit where maybe we got something wrong or admit where we learned something. And maybe you'll convince somebody, but you should walk away with both sides saying that was a fair fight. And maybe they didn't convince one another, but I have a better perspective on what both sides of this think about this particular topic. The problem is the moment someone is willing to throw out logic and reason, the moment they're willing to throw out the law of non-contradiction when it no longer works for their argument, that is an irrational human being for which it is impossible to have a formative discussion with.
Yeah.
And that's where
the best way that I would describe it is you cannot reason somebody out of something that they never reasoned themselves into to begin with.
That's a good way to put it. All right, let's move on to our next favorite example.
This is the most infamous story of all time.
The laptop from hell. I don't know about you, but I was just so disturbed when this all came out because after all, we had experts, 50 of them, I think. More than 50. Here's the headline from Politico. Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinformation. Dozens of former intel officers say so. And that's how you know what's true or not, is when dozens of intel officers say so. More than 50 former intelligence officials signed a letter casting doubt on the provenance of a New York Post story on the former vice president's laptop. That's right. It says, here we go. More than 50 former senior intelligence officers have signed to a letter outlining their belief that the recent disclosure of emails allegedly belonging to Joe Biden's son has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. Now, how do you know this is true? Well, it's really simple. These intelligence officers didn't want Trump to get reelected. And so therefore, whatever information was not helpful to that purpose had all the earmarks of a Russian information operation. That's how you know, because that's how we determine now whether or not something is disinformation or Russian information. Does it help my particular political objectives? No, totally Russian disinformation. That's pretty much the only criteria that's necessary anymore. I will tell you this much. One of the things that I've heard talked about that I would love for Donald Trump to do if he gets reelected is to come in and look at all those intel officers and be like, security clearances revoked, right? Security clearances revoked. because I can't tell you how many. Look, I have had a top secret security clearance with SCI. If you want to know what all that means, go look it up. So many of these former intel officers, their careers post-government work are almost entirely reliant, or at least, I wouldn't say entirely, in large part reliant on their ability to maintain their security clearance, and they're using it as a form of justification to engage in this. So I just think it would be that's one of those things where people get on to me sometimes, Nick, you're not willing to use government to go after people. I'm willing to do it when they're doing something like this. The Hill had a very similar story. 50 former intelligence officials warned. New York Post story sounds like Russian disinformation. Notice again the way that they will say things. And this is important to understand when you're looking at the world of fact checking, right? Because I have experiences with this directly where I got fact checked by PolitiFact. They would take something I said that was technically true. Then they would assign to me, without asking me, they would assign to me a meaning or an intention to what I said, and then they would rule that intention or that meaning half true. It's like, well, wait, what did I say? Is what I said true? Then it's true. If you want to say, yeah, this is true, however, there's missing context. Okay, fine. So go ahead and say that. If you think there's a different way to look at this or a different perspective, fine with that. But that's not what they would do, right? So you will look at it where Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinformation. Dozens of former intel officials say so. They will say concepts, or they will put headlines, and they will word it just right to ensure that if they're fact checked, they can always come back and say, oh, well, we were just reporting on what these over 50 intel officials said. Mm-hmm. Right? And again, that would be fair if the fact checkers would apply the same reasoning, the same scrutiny to when the right does something similar.
Right. And this was all happening when Twitter did not belong to Elon Musk. And so Twitter was revoking people's ability to use the platform. They were suppressing information. In fact, apparently the FBI or CIA was in communication with these platforms saying, watch out for Russian disinformation. I think that was mainly the
FBI, but yeah.
Was that the FBI?
Yeah.
Well, they were telling them to watch out for Russian disinformation, and that this kind of looks like Russian disinformation. So what does Twitter do? They rip all of that stuff down so no one can get to the bottom of it during an election year.
Well, and again, if Twitter was really operating like a genuine platform, and we're operating under this idea of complete political bias, then they would have looked at them and said, okay, well, that's great. You are welcome to come on to Twitter and make that argument. If the FBI Twitter page wants to come on and say, we think this is Russian disinformation, again, I would have thought that was problematic, but they could have done it. But no, Twitter said, oh, you've said that? Okay, then we'll take it down. Now, if somebody on the right had come out and said, hey, we've got 50 intel officers that have said that what you're actually doing over here is disinformation, but it hurts Biden-Harris, I guarantee you, Twitter would have been like, we are a platform that respects freedom of speech. Right? Again, that's the contradiction. They're all about freedom of speech as long as the speech is confirming what they want to happen or saying what they already believe. The moment it doesn't, well, now all of a sudden we have to apply a higher level of scrutiny in order to protect democracy.
It's okay, though, because the right is starting to catch on to this gimmick.
Oh, I think they've totally caught on at this point.
This is why Tim Pool has said repeatedly that, like, if you support freedom of speech, yes, I will definitely defend your freedom of speech, but I'm done. I'm sick and tired of defending the freedom of speech of those who want to take it away from me.
Well, and can we also point something out? So when Elon Musk bought X, right, bought Twitter, turned it into X, did he immediately go out and censor a bunch of left-wing media? Did he go censor left-wing sites? Did he kick them? Wait a second. Did he kick everybody off? Did he do any of that? No. You know what he provided? A level playing field. And the left lost their minds. And the thing that you need to understand is that was one of the most telling things that actually took place. Twitter files, all the other stuff, very, very revealing. Getting rid of 80% of the employees to be able to, very, very revealing. But one of the most revealing things was the left were not furious because they were being censored on Twitter the way that the right was. The left was furious because they no longer had the power to censor the right.
Yep.
They can't compete on a level playing field, and they frigging know it.
I read something somewhere. This is just a little sidebar. Since we're talking about Elon Musk buying Twitter, there are rumors that he has another search engine in the works that will not censor.
I'll go to it immediately.
Well, that makes sense because we showed a tweet earlier in this podcast of him hinting that Google was kind of cooking their own search books and their algorithm. I mean, I literally live on this show, like typed in assassination attempt on, and Trump didn't show up. Instead, we got Lennon and George Wallace.
And Seward. Yeah. All right, so here's another one. Now, again, this all came out here very recently. So in 2021, you saw all the articles, 50 Intel officers say that this is Russian disinformation. Then it's Intel contractors on CIA's payroll colluded with the Biden campaign to discredit Hunter's laptop as Russian disinformation. Bombshell new report claims. Scroll down a little bit. Some ex-intelligence officials were actively being paid by the CIA on a contract basis when they signed the letter that falsely claimed Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Michael Morrell, former deputy director of the CIA and former CIA Inspector General David Buckley, was another, according to a bombshell new report from the House Judiciary Committee. Again, this is where when you look at some of the worst collusion taking place, the actual collusion that's taking place was not Russia. Now, let's dispel something real quick. Does Russia try to interfere in our elections? Yes. Yes, they do. So does China. So does Qatar. So does Israel. So does everybody.
And you know what? And we try to interfere with theirs.
And we interfere.
Well, China doesn't have elections, but
and we interfere in their stuff as well. This always happens, right? This always happens. This is not new. This is not crazy. The question is, what are the motivations influencing and whatnot? All of it. So all these people will say, Palestinians try to interfere in American elections.
Oh, right? They're definitely trying to interfere.
Because the outcome of American elections has a huge global impact on everything from national security to trade to various other components, funding, everything. So this idea that this is somehow, oh my gosh, this is really, give me a break. Give me a break. It all happens. What's important to know is when it's happening and when it's not happening, what it actually means, what it actually looks like. And then back to Tina's point, do you think that anybody's interfering in an election to massively sway my opinion on what's going to happen? No, because I'm grounded in what I believe, right? And I understand how I want the government to operate. And so I elect the people that I think have the best chance of doing what I want. Doesn't mean they will, but that's how I vote. It's the people that are like, I don't know, I just voted. He has kind eyes. Like, holy crap. Like, this is, what do we do with this? Anyway, but yeah, that's what you saw with the laptop from hell. It has been so thoroughly debunked. But again, they don't particularly care. This is also where the hubris goes into play, right? They don't particularly care because the point was not to keep this laptop off the market forever. The point was not to hide all of this forever. The point was to draw enough doubt for just enough time to make sure that nothing could be done about it.
Right. To make sure that the election went the direction they wanted it to go. And then at that point, now they've got Biden. He can issue whatever he needs to pardon people.
Who do you think had a greater impact? Who do you think had a greater impact on skewing election outcomes in the United States through disinformation? Do you think it was Russia spending, a few $100,000, maybe a couple $1 million on bots on social media in order to push something? Or do you think it was every single major media outlet colluding with elements of the federal government plus contractors of the federal government in order to completely suppress information on their platforms?
Absolutely.
What do you think had a greater impact on the election?
The latter, for sure. For sure.
And again, I'm not saying that U.S. media outlets or whatnot can't have an impact on U.S. elections. They're supposed to. The question is, did you do it through disinformation? The operative word is who was the one putting out disinformation in order to impact an electoral outcome?
Yep. And you know what's really crazy is they'll come back, they'll issue like, oh, we're sorry, we were wrong here. Let's retract it on page 9.
Yeah.
And what the crazy thing is they think it's all water under the bridge. Like, oh, well, we retracted it. We did our due diligence and we fired this guy and it's all better now. But that doesn't account for the millions of people that still think that's the truth. Like, you cannot convince them it's not the truth. I know leftists right now who still believe in Russian collusion with Donald Trump. I know leftists who still believe the laptop is fake. They still believe all of that, even though the media has now come clean.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that the media came clean. They believe it still, and the media knows it. The media knows that that's all they need to do because people are gullible. People want to be gaslit. They want to be lied to.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next one. This one is, I really appreciate this next one, and that is the mostly peaceful protest. If you ever wanted, perhaps, I mean, we talked before about how it was so blatant when the Washington Post and CNN were talking about like Trump removed by Secret Service when he falls on stage, Trump removed from stage after loud noises. Like that was ridiculous in print. But if you want probably the most obvious in real time, cameras are rolling as they're talking, the mostly peaceful protest while things are burning behind them is had to be.
Have you seen that meme of "There's nothing to see here"? It's the like Baghdad Bob meme.
Yeah. Well, there was one from an old, like it was a slapstick video that they did. I can't remember the guy's name, the actor's name,
and like everything's exploding behind him.
Nothing to see here. Move along. Like this is again. This would be, let me tell you, what would be the equivalent of this. The equivalent of this would have been if you would have had like a Fox News reporter outside the worst parts of what happened on January 6th saying, this is actually a mostly peaceful protest. Tens of thousands of people that were here are not storming the Capitol. Like if Fox had done that, you would have looked at it and said, okay, but the substantive part of what's going on right now is not the fact that you had people peacefully protesting. It's the fact that you did actually have people breaking windows and trying to get, not everybody, not most everybody, right? But that's what the media focused on, right? But when it came to this, it's like, there's numerous, this isn't the only example. This one right here is MSNBC, where this guy is talking about, I want to be clear on how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly as a building is on fire behind him. And just so you know, it wasn't the only one. Here's the one with CNN. And this is the best
fiery,
best media. So you know those chyrons, right? The chyrons are the thing at the bottom of the page and during reports where it's like you text, it goes fiery but mostly peaceful protests after police shooting. This is in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And it's just, again, you look at this, and if you look at the way they're reporting, are they technically accurate? So if I have 10,000 people protesting and 500 of them, no, let's do one better. I have 10,000 people protesting and 4,999 of them are setting things on fire, looting and shooting. But 5,001 of them are not. Can I call that a mostly peaceful protest? Well, if you're a moron at CNN or MSNBC, yes, you can. And I'm sure the fact checkers
has turned into a meme.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure the fact checkers are like, well, technically they're correct. You know, context needed.
Apparently, setting fire to things is not violence, though.
No. Well, it's just like whenever they're looting stores. It's like, well, they're doing this to feed their families. Really?
No, they're not.
Really? That's why okay.
I mean, it would be the equivalent of like when you and I say on the pod, and we brought this up before, like when we say that, you know, does anybody remember when the left was setting fire to American cities in the summer of 2020? It would be the equivalent of the media coming in, being in fact check and be like, well, technically a majority of city blocks in urban areas in the United States were not actually physically set on fire in the summer of 2020. Like,
yeah.
It gets to a point where eventually the response from people who are not just totally ideologically drinking the Kool-Aid are like, I'm done listening to you.
Yes.
I'm done listening to you because at the end of the day, you're a bunch of hacks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
like
a bunch
we
of
can
hacks.
see it with our own eyes. It reminds me of what's going on right now with the crime statistics.
Yeah.
And how all the news outlets right now are parroting this whole, crime is actually down. Crime's down. But then it turns out that the FBI is cooking the books on the crime numbers because most of these states don't report their crime numbers to the FBI.
A lot of the major cities are not reporting their crime numbers to the FBI.
So the FBI guesses.
Yeah.
And that's where they're getting this from is the FBI's guess. And they always guess in one direction.
Yeah. And here's another, and this kind of, again, this once again illustrates the contradiction or the double standard, right? It's like, look at these horrendous pictures. Never forget what happened on January 6th. Oh, wait, never mind. These are from mostly peaceful BLM protests. Again, let me just say this again.
And it's for the audio listeners, this is a collage of cityscapes being literally set on fire from the BLM protests in 2020.
I don't have a problem with the press coming in and focusing in on the worst parts of what happened on January 6th. I understand why they did that. I understand why that was the primary focal point of the reporting. We all get it because that's the part that was unusual. That's the part that doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
That's the part that's completely outside the law. That's also the part that Donald Trump actually got on Twitter that day and was like, peacefully protest. Do not, use violence. We're the party of law and order, that they took down from Twitter because they wanted to be able to crush him with it.
They removed it.
But anyways, the mostly peaceful protest, I think it was probably, I think that broke a lot of people. I think that was a lot of people where they looked at that and said, yeah, this has gotten to a level of sheer absurdity that when January 6th happened, I knew a lot of people, and I remember I commented on January 6th, I think I commented on the 7th or 8th, and I said, look, I've had a lot of people ask me to comment on this, so here's what I'm going to comment on, because we had just got out of a very, very contested race for Congress at that point. And I said, I'm never going to condone anybody engaging in vandalism, trespassing. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to excuse people that I might have voted the same as when they do that. I'm not going to do that. You have to be prosecuted, because otherwise we're saying that this is perfectly fine to do, and chaos is what comes next. I said, but I find it a little bit disingenuous that the same people who were cheering, or as Vice President Kamala Harris did, encouraging people to bail out rioters. Right? I have a hard time believing that the same people who celebrated all of these protests throughout all the summer of 2020, who celebrated Chaz and CHOP, which were independent autonomous zones that were set up in Portland and Seattle, where people literally got abused, murdered, right? Oh no, the summer of love. Oh, you know what? If you're not willing to hear us when we speak peacefully, I guess this is what we got to resort to, right? The same politicians, and I'm not talking about crazies, elected officials who got up and said, hey, you got to get in their face. You got to do this.
Fight them in the streets.
Those same people are now, oh my gosh, I can't believe this, worst thing that ever happened. And you know what they all resorted to the moment that happened? Fences, walls, increased security. Like, they brought in everybody to protect them. But they didn't want to bring in anybody to protect the shop owner who watched his entire life go up in flames, right? They didn't want to do that because America to them is them. America is them in their pretty buildings in Washington, D.C. America's not you. America's not you, you little shop owner. That's not you.
And then they wonder how they get these commerce deserts.
Yeah.
It's like because of the behavior and what you do to these shop owners, they don't want to come into your area anymore.
All right, now let's look at this has got to be
this might be the most egregious of all of them.
Do you think this one's the most egregious?
Think about it from this standpoint.
Okay.
And actually, before we jump into this, there's a tweet from not me, believe it or not, from John Harwood, although I do have some tweets. Yeah. Not going to lie. But there's a tweet from John Harwood.
I was just going to ask you, do you mean this is the most egregious, or is this the most obvious?
I think this might be actually the most egregious.
Okay.
And here's the reason why. Here's a tweet from John Harwood. Let me post it here, and I'll have Nick read it off.
Yeah.
John Harwood is probably one of the biggest media hacks of all time. This is from, I believe, November when he put this out.
Okay.
You want to talk about picking a side?
John Harwood. Right? Remember, press does not pick a side. This guy is a journalist, public speaker, ex-Wall Street Journal, New York Times, NBC, CNN, Speakeasy podcast, whatever. All right. Biden needs expert political guidance. Voters are unhappy. Trump could win despite his flagrant criminality and deranged mental state. Journalists need to better convey two realities. The U.S. economy is doing well, not poorly. Yeah, definitely go with that there, John. And Biden at 80 is handling the job effectively right now. That's John Harwood.
This is a journalist.
This is November 13th,
with
2023.
500,000 followers on Twitter.
So this is a year old.
Yeah, November. He said that in November 2023.
Yeah. I mean, he's literally saying basically, we need to kick it in high gear to help this guy because he's actually doing a great job running the country, right?
And then we have this article from The Hill by Juan Williams. And Juan Williams is supposed to be like one of the more reasonable guys on the left that you can have a conversation with. But this is what he said. Inaction on GOP's Biden cheap fakes will cost us our democracy. So the argument was, and the media ran with this, is that, no, it's not that Biden's cognitive ability is in question. No, what's going on is Republicans are selectively editing clips to make it look that way. Mm-hmm. Now, were there people on the right selectively editing clips? Yes. That happens all the time. The left and the right both do it to each other.
Well, what they were doing is they were creating compilations.
They were creating compilations, or they were doing stuff that was satire. So sometimes it was satire, sometimes it was compilations of things taking place. It's like, oh, this is creating an image that doesn't accurately reflect reality. They were saying this, wait a second, inaction on GOP's Biden cheap fakes will cost us our democracy. So the problem was not Biden's cognitive decline.
Right.
The problem was our cheap fakes. When was this written? June 6th of this year.
Yeah, right before.
No, I'm sorry. My bad. June 24th of this year is when that was written.
Right.
Like, how detached from reality. This was a couple days before the debate.
It's because there were a lot of little clips going around where there were just little clips of of conversations or speeches or things like that where Biden would go rambling and you wouldn't be totally unintelligible. You wouldn't be able to understand what he was saying. And just because it was that really tiny, well, look at this little clip of this and clips of him falling, clips of, weird conversations, weird behaviors, him freezing up, stuff like that. And that's what they were referring to. These things weren't even heavily edited. They were just
Let's scroll down a little bit.
Selective clips.
I want to say this. Juan Williams, talk about playing with fire and getting burned. The Republican National Committee is defiantly sending out misleading videos to add credibility to the idea that an aging President Biden is mentally incompetent. RNC officials say they do not care that their fraud is being called out by fact checkers at big news corp organizations, although not manipulated by AI. See, listen, although not manipulated by AI, they do not stand up to scrutiny when the moments are viewed in context or from wider camera angles. They do not care that Biden White House press secretary is labeling the manipulated videos as cheap fakes and saying the treachery tells you everything that we need to know about how desperate Republicans are. Republicans don't care because these cheap fake videos are money-making hit. Clickbait's supreme in the conservative media's echo chamber. They are even being picked up for local news broadcasts by Sinclair. Conservative websites and radio shows have joined in mocking and bullying Biden. This is Juan Williams. How dare you suggest June 24th of this year? This is a couple days before the debate. This is Juan Williams. No, the real problem is not Biden's cognitive decline. It's that you Republicans are making it to look like he has cognitive decline. Okay, Juan, I got a question. Did we make him get up there on the debate stage? Did we make him answer questions the way he did? Did we cause him to freeze up? Like, I got to tell you, I don't care what cheap fake Republicans put out.
Yeah.
I don't care what cheap fake. Nothing was as damning as your guy on the stage. And you want to know how we know it? Because the moment that happened, the entire Democratic establishment that had been propping up Joe Biden, and I'm with Joe. Joe Biden's going to win a second term. Joe Biden's
sharp
in control.
as a tack.
Sharp as a tack. All of his doctors agree. He is just 10 minutes after that, it was like, oh crap.
Something seriously wrong. Everybody was losing their minds. I mean, there were some leftist media that I had never seen, act genuine ever.
Yeah.
Who suddenly could not mask it anymore. And they were genuine for a hot second.
And here's the deal. They weren't genuine about the cognitive. It was not Biden's cognitive decline that caused Democrats to ask him to step down. It was his decline in the polls, not cognitive decline, polling decline. I guarantee you, regardless of how he performed in that debate, if the polls showed that he was 5 to 6 points ahead, every Democrat would have lined up and said, he did great. Yep. They would have done the Joe Biden. Joe, you answered every question. It was like me talking to my kindergartner. Actually, I take that back. I held my kindergartner to a higher. It wasn't, did you answer every question? It was, how many did you get right? Did you actually give a coherent response? Right? But no. Joe, you answered every question. Who wants ice cream? Right? Like, this was how they were treating him. And then telling us that the real problem was our cheap fakes. And the end result was the moment the polls went like this, the Democrats like, we got to jettison you, man. Sorry. Stuck with you as long as we stuck with you.
And then the money shut off too.
When we stuck with you all through the cognitive decline and all through the primary, we deliberately manipulated, the party of democracy deliberately manipulated their own primary process to prevent RFK from being able to compete in it, to prevent anybody from being able to compete in it. Right. And then at the end, did they say, okay, we're going to come up with some sort of snap process to give? No. It was the party of democracy is now going to inform their voters who their candidate will be, and you will take it and you will like it.
And by the way, we're gonna immediately turn her into a TikTok sensation.
Yeah.
And has anybody seen the tweets lately?
They don't mind that that's what's happening.
No, I know that they don't mind.
The left totally doesn't care that they did this.
That's
to them.
the whole point. That's the whole point, because again, it's the same people that were repeatedly for years, elected officials and activists, and journalists, of course, that were all saying Joe Biden's on his game. Yep. He's sharp as a tack. Again, John Harwood was like, in that tweet that I read off, or that I showed you that you read off, he was saying like Joe Biden at 80 is doing an excellent job at running the country. Nobody in their right mind thinks Joe Biden is running anything right now. No. Everybody knew after that debate that was all a lie. And this is why I say that this story out of everything is probably the most egregious out of all of them, because we were gaslit for years that this man was running the country, that this man was president of the United States. He certainly has been elected to that office, but he's not executing that office. I mean, and it gets back into a broader point that we've discussed back and forth, that like the Leviathan's running the country, the bureaucracy's running the country. It's the administrative state that's really running the country. It's not Joe Biden that's running the country. And the entire country was shown that to be the case when that debate took place. Up until that debate, we were lied to repeatedly by the media, by Democratic elected officials, by political activists. We were lied to about who was really running the show. And then the lie was exposed. And the second that the lie was exposed, they tried to jettison this guy and eventually successfully did so after a month of inter-party fighting over that.
Yeah.
And the only reason that they did it is exactly to your point. If he was leading instead of trailing Donald Trump by 3 points in the polls, they would be circling the wagons rather than trying to eject him and put somebody else in. The only reason they did that was because for the first time in 20 years, they're losing in the popular vote and they're getting crushed in the swing state polls under him. And so they ejected him and they put somebody like Kamala Harris in. And now we're being subjected to another current thing. Yeah. And this current thing is Kamala Harris is now quirky and relatable and just, so entertaining. And
well, it's funny because when she was running on the ticket, there was news reports coming out talking about how she was a drag on the ticket.
Yeah.
That people didn't like Kamala Harris. And again, understand how much time and effort the Democratic Party put in and how much personal political capital Barack Obama put in to elevating Kamala Harris as the next great thing. The next great thing. Did it when she was an attorney general, did it when she became a senator. Like, he has a lot personally invested in this.
Yes.
And the moment the American people actually got to like know her, see her, it was like, no, she's not likable. She's not relatable. She's all over the place. She's not consistent with respect to what she believes. She gives off the air of somebody that wants power and is willing to jettison anybody she needs to or adopt anybody she needs to in order to achieve it.
Yeah. Can I point out, since we're just wrapping up the Biden cheap fakes thing, I just want to tag one more thing on in this section because this very much goes along with it. That is, before Biden, the media was all on point. I did not pull a bunch of links for this one, but you will all remember the media was hounding Donald Trump for his age.
Yeah. Because
he was the oldest president in office at that time. And so they were hounding him about his age, about his cognitive ability and the whole thing. As soon as Biden got in, they kept harping on, his age. There's nothing wrong with his age. Age is just a number. He's cognitively totally fine, totally okay. We all, all the experts agree.
Yeah.
And anybody, all of the people closest to him knew that he had cognitive decline and they were hiding it for him. Nobody was taken by surprise at the debates. Yeah. The only thing that surprised everybody is that apparently they couldn't hype him up on enough freaking Ritalin or something to get him to be alert enough. They didn't give him enough uppers before this debate thing. And so as soon as they swept Biden away, now it's all back to age. Immediately, 180, all the media was talking about now is Donald Trump's age. And, Donald Trump should follow Biden's lead by not, subjecting us to an elderly president. And now they're going into Trump's decline. They even went as far as to take a clip of when They were praying at the Republican National Convention, and Donald Trump's eyes were closed because they were praying. I can't tell you how many different news sources were sitting there saying that he fell asleep during the RNC.
I mean, the same people who, again, told us that Biden was sharp as a tack are now telling us that Kamala Harris is a cultural icon.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
And you know, that she's going to win off of TikTok memes and coconut trees. She'll be unburdened.
We've got a picture of the New York, was it the New Yorker magazine that put out the welcome to Camelot. And it was a picture of all these Democrats, like, you know, around Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris, like it's a cartoon, right? And Kamala Harris on top of a coconut, because she had that weird speech where he goes, "You think you just fell out of the coconut tree?" And it's there's this huge thing to make her fun and quirky and intelligent and on it and powerful and in charge. And it's like nobody's buying this.
It's the most astroturfed cultural phenomenon I've ever seen in my entire life. And you know, we all know exactly why this has happened. By the way, we don't have this as links, but we're currently living through another gaslighting moment right now, which is the media trying to say Trump and Vance are weirdos.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. The people who are trying to mutilate children, normalize grown men punching women in the face in the Olympics that's taking place right now, because there's trans men that are fighting in women's sports in the Olympics and boxing.
Yeah. Oh, remember
those people are trying to tell us. The people that are trying to normalize drag queen story hour and riding around naked in San Francisco on your bike during Pride Month, they're trying to tell us that JD Vance and Trump are the weirdos.
Yeah.
The biggest weirdos on the planet that are trying to normalize degeneracy and utter decadence and like mass orgies and vice are trying to lecture us on, you know what it is they've totally flipped on its head what normality is.
Yes.
And in clown world, JD Vance and Trump are weirdos. But you know what? I think a lot of people are really sick and tired of clown world right now.
Oh, the idea that the Biden administration, who had a guy within the executive branch that was running around, that bald-headed dude, looked real weird, was always dressed in women's clothing, who got arrested for stealing luggage at the airport. By the way, not the first time he did that. Those are the people accusing Trump and JD Vance of being weirdos.
And he was even wearing the women's clothes to events.
Yes.
He was pictured wearing clothes to events.
Do you remember when the trans activists showed up at the White House last year and ripped their tops off with the cameras and stuff like that? Do you remember when Pete Buttigieg and his partner had a kid, and then they had like the photos of them like breastfeeding the kids
with a container?
Again.
Chest feeding.
You want to talk about? Oh yeah, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to say that. The people with front holes and again, like there's so many examples of the left. Just, I mean, again, the same people that want to normalize using pronouns. Yeah, I had this guy. I tweeted something yesterday and about like why young men are leaving the Democratic Party in droves. Yeah. And you and I have talked about this, right? In 2016, it was absolute majority of 18 to 29-year-old men identified as Democrats, and now it's like 38%. And I guarantee you that number is going to be going a lot lower with Kamala Harris leading the Democratic Party. And so I basically said, like, well, young men are leaving the Democratic Party because they are finally applying the friend-enemy distinction that the left have applied to them for over a decade. Yeah. They have declared them the enemy for over a decade, and now, 10 years later, young men are realizing, oh, okay, you say I'm the enemy? Well, you are my enemy. And I brought up that I was in college when this started in 2014 and 2015. And I remember even then, at the beginning of it, this was utterly insufferable. We were given no quarter. Our professors, many of our female peers, just absolutely loathed us. Why? Because of our skin color if we were white, or because of our sex if we were men. Yeah. And this random dude that follows me replied and was like, LOL. And I'll reveal the rest of this too, but he's like, LOL, I went to JMU too, just like you. None of this happened to me. You're mentally ill. And then I check out his bio. He has like, his bio's like a picture of him wearing a bunch of masks that say like vote. He's a Democratic political operative that uses he, him pronouns in his Twitter bio.
He should change those.
He's worked for like the Democrats in the House of Delegates here in Virginia. And like, he's just a Democrat political hack. Yeah. That's like a couple years younger than me. And this guy's like trying to tell me that I'm the mentally ill one. And so like, I replied with like some of these charts that we've talked about where I'm like,
the statistics show us that you're the mentally ill
I'm not the demographic that's trying to normalize this stuff. And by the way, has a self-reported mental illness rate of over 30% of just young men. Yeah. That's just young men. Young women in our age group that are on the left, it's over a majority of them, over 50% of them that have a mental illness. You want to talk about projection? You are literally a Democrat political operative with masks and pronouns in your bio, no joke, and you're trying to say, I have a mental illness. You know nothing except the art of projection.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible that these are the people, the clowns of the world, dare I say it, the losers of the world. I've said that before and I'll say it again. No. The losers, the clowns, the lunatics of the world are trying to, again, gaslight us into thinking that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are the weirdos. No, they're the weirdos, and they've turned normality on its head and said normality is oppressive, and from our twisted framework, we're now going to redefine what it means to be normal. The same people who think the family unit is a form of heteronormative patriarchal oppression.
Yeah.
Again, want to lecture us on weirdos?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Nobody believes you anymore.
It really is. The other thing that was kind of insulting about some of the things that went after J.D. Vance on is like, look at J.D. Vance's story, right? J.D. Vance, I mean, if you've ever seen Hillbilly Elegy, if you've read the book or whatnot, he talks a lot about how he grew up under very, very poor and difficult and abusive conditions, right? Joined the military, served overseas, worked his way through law school, and then to have like Kamala Harris say he doesn't serve the country, only serves Trump. And like Vance was like, oh, really? You want to compare notes? You want to compare records? But that's the thing, right? It's the weirdos is the one where all of us look at them and it's like, you're not a serious person, right? You're just not a serious person. I don't know how to articulate it. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, this stuff all used to make me like really mad, right? It got frustrated. I'm like, no, wait, I got to respond. And now I just look at it. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. This is all just mockable. And it's not that, because part of what I learned was this. They love James Lindsay talks about this a lot with respect to Saul Alinsky and everything. The right's reaction is what the left is looking for by their action. And they hate the right's reaction, or they love the right's reaction when we get really upset and we storm things and we get mad and we say, they hate our reaction when we don't take them seriously. Now, I don't mean not taking them seriously with respect to, the threat that their policies pose, that their ideology pose. You need to take that seriously.
They don't like it when we
you match that ideology with power and you're in a lot of trouble. You have to take that seriously. But they despise it when you look at them and be like, what, are you serious right now? Well, no, you're supposed to be angry at me. You're supposed to fear me. You're supposed to be, dude, I don't fear you, right? Like no, don't fear you at all. I especially don't fear this manifestation of the left for all the reasons you just mentioned. The old left that didn't trash masculinity, right? That one actually had some power to work with. The new left that is made up of, again, people that think that drag queen story hour is what's really missing from public education right now, right? That's what dude, I don't fear you. I don't fear you.
I'm disgusted by them.
Sure.
It's not fear. It's disgust.
But it's not fear. Like, I love it when one of these people gets on there like, if you go against trans kids, you'll have to answer to me. I'm like, well, that'll take 5 seconds. Right? Like what am I answering? Like, what are you projecting? Like, your foot soldiers are Antifa, right? Like, really? There's nothing scary about you. There's nothing, your ideology is horrible.
I think their stupidity is pretty scary, and what they implement through, just sort of their groupthink is scary.
Sure.
I look at when we're on this topic of media gaslighting and things like that, during the debates, they fact-checked Donald Trump's inflation numbers, and they're like, oh, that's a lie. Inflation is down to 3% and blah, blah, blah. And they go on and on about inflation's only this percent, 3%, 5%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, what they mean is it's that percent over last month, over last month, over last month.
Or last year.
Or last year. Donald Trump was basing his numbers off of this time during his presidency versus this time during Biden's presidency. So they cook the books on the way that they measure inflation.
Well, they cook the books after they originally said it's not a thing. You have to understand they went through a cycle here, and this is like one of the last big stories. Although there's a couple other things that I want to bring up, but we have to talk about the inflation thing, because anybody that remembers
let's just move into that. We're going to talk about, again, another one of our favorite gaslighting moments is inflation. And this is the part where it was inflation isn't happening. Okay, well, if inflation is happening, it's not that bad and it's transitory. Actually, inflation's a good thing.
I remember that.
If you don't like inflation, you're a neo-Nazi. Now, if you think that I just exaggerated that, let's go to the receipts.
2021. President Biden speaking with reporters July 19th. This is 2021, his first year in office. There's nobody suggesting that unchecked inflation on the way.
That was just a tweet. There's another one here.
No serious economist is saying that unchecked inflation is on its way.
None. In fact, click on the next one. Yeah, here's this one I love, right? Barron's magazine. So we're talking about people that at least should have their finger on the pulse with respect to financial markets and should at least know how monetary inflation works. Here's Barron's, and this is on March 11th, 2021. Inflation isn't happening, and it likely won't. Here are 7 charts showing this. If you want to know why one of the reasons we focus so much on this podcast on making good, sound, logical arguments and not being overly reliant on whatever numbers just get thrown out there, it's because of that. The same people that should know better are saying, no, we've got all these charts. No, look at this. Bureau of Labor Statistics is saying this. Everything's fine. Stop believing what you see in your day-to-day life, right? And just trust us. Now, is there an argument to be made that sometimes your personal anecdotal evidence does not generate into a larger, widespread understanding of a topic? Sure. Is empirical evidence useful? Yes, if it's properly understood in context. But there's a reason why I think it was Mark Twain that said there's lies, damn lies in statistics. And it's because statistics carry with it this air of authority. And they are the ones that are used the most to manipulate the process. And this was a perfect example of inflation. So remember, the story 2021, we're not talking about 2021. Inflation isn't happening, and it's not going to. Here's 7 charts that show why. Then we get into Secretary Janet Yellen. I regret saying it was transitory. It has come down, but I think transitory means a few weeks or months to most people. Because remember, it's not happening, and then it's transitory. Oh, this is just something that is becoming here for a while. Some of the responses to this were hysterical because it was the idea of, what's also transitory? Life, right? Life is transitory.
By the summer of 2020, even within the same year, just 3-4 months after Biden and many of the media outlets were basically saying inflation's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. This is what CNN came out with in the summer of 2021.
Well, wait a second. Wait, before we get to that, there was another one there just to show the point. I don't know if we skipped it already or maybe we went past it. There was another one that actually said why, I might have it in the wrong order, why inflation is actually good for you and healthy, right? Why inflation is healthy. And then after that, so again, not happening. It's transitory. It's actually a good thing. And then finally this. Oh, here it is. Yeah, CNN Business. Inflation is healthy, but the neo-Nazi alt-right are upset about it. Now, was this put
neo-Nazi alt-right?
Oh, neo-Nazi alt-right. Now, keep in mind, this was probably put out by some like rinky-dink, news. Oh, no, CNN. Right? Yeah. Inflation is healthy, but the neo-Nazi alt-right are upset about it. And Patrick Lowry said, in less than a month, we've gone from inflation doesn't exist, inflation is transitory, inflation is higher than we expected, inflation is good for you. This is one of the first times where I remember when this whole thing was going on, and Christian and I were trying to articulate this cycle that was taking place on the left and within the media. And this is where the first place where I thought it became very, very evident, where it's that thing that you're upset about isn't happening. If it's happening, it's a good thing. And the only reason you're mad about it is because, it's the thing is not happening. Okay, the thing may be happening, but it's a good thing. And then it was, and if you don't celebrate the thing, you're a bigot. Like that was kind of, that was the general cycle. And you understand that it was used for inflation, but that cycle is also being used for transgender operations on 16-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. It's being used for, chemical castration medicine on 11-year-old kids.
It's being used for porn in your kids' libraries.
Your public school library. It's being used for, drag queen story hour. It's been used for all of that. Whatever the thing is, mm-hmm. right? That's not happening. Why do you care if it's happening? If it is happening, it's a good thing. And if you don't celebrate it, you're a bigot. That's the transition. every single time.
Every single time. And again, eventually people caught on and simply stopped caring about what many of these people, advocated for.
Seven ways of recession.
7 ways of recession could be good for you financially. Yeah. Oh, okay, man. Talk about a vibe shift within just a year. I keep using vibe shift now. I mean, we went from inflation is not happening and Republicans are, liars for Republicans pounds to, it's going to be transitory to, inflation is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
To now,
you're a neo-Nazi.
You're a neo-Nazi.
If you don't like inflation.
To here's how a recession is actually going to help you.
Yeah. Well, and now look, I am hitting them up a lot on the intellectual dishonesty here. Now allow me to be intellectually honest in a way that is not convenient for me. And we've talked about this before. The inflation that we're experiencing cannot be chalked up exclusively to Joe Biden. Right? When the Fed printed $3 trillion during COVID, regardless of how you feel about that, regardless of how you feel about the government spending associated with it, that was under the Trump administration. There was a lot of Republicans that supported it. In fact, I think the only one that actually had the guts to really come out and force the issue was Thomas Massey. And he was frigging right, and everyone else was wrong, to include Trump. Right? And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because if we're not intellectually honest, we don't get to sit here and accuse them of being intellectually dishonest. Right. So that's important to understand. And the other reason why it's important to understand that is because I don't want to make the same mistake when we're back in power. I want us all to understand that money printer go burr at the Federal Reserve and at the U.S. Treasury is not a good idea. It is not sound economic policy. It's going to seem really nice initially, and then it's going to suck, except for the people that are most closely connected to government. BlackRock loves inflationary monetary policy, absolutely adores it. All right, let's go and this is the other thing too that was about this. Bureau of Labor Statistics just quietly changed how CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, that's how they actually gauge inflation, is measured. This is in 2023. They changed the CPI look back from 2 years to 1 year, which will now show inflation is decreasing. They're literally trying to pretend their way out of economic turmoil. So to get you to kind of wrap everyone's minds around that, what they're essentially saying is that if I compare the Consumer Price Index over a 2-year period, and I see, like, let's say a 50% increase in prices. Well, that's, or 25% increase in prices. That's significant, right? Well, if I cut that down, I just do year after year, and I say, oh, well, look, it only went up 10%, whereas last year it was this high. We've cut inflation by 50%. No, you just changed the way you report about it.
You know what's also incredible is that a lot of these same outlets in other countries have done similar gimmicks. For example, you see quite a few countries, you see quite a few media outlets that will say things like, under Javier Milei's Argentina, 40% of Argentinians are living in poverty and the inflation rate is 100%. And then they're leaving out conveniently that, like, when he took office, the inflation rate was like 200%. And it has fallen every month since he's taken office. Yep. But shocker, when you inherit total economic collapse, you cannot instantly take a country from Argentina to utopia in 1 day after you take office. And this is something that Milei, in his own speech when he took office, his own inauguration speech, he literally said, this is going to take probably 2 to 3 years for us to get through this process. But if we execute this plan, we will hopefully see positive results month after month towards normal inflation, towards normal employment.
Absolutely works.
And every month he has delivered lower inflation than the previous month. He also has now delivered a balanced budget, which is contributing to lower inflation. But we know, because of the way that inflation works, it involves things like the velocity of money. There's other aspects of this that economists have talked about, mostly within like the Austrian school or the Chicago school. And it's just so incredibly disingenuous the way that certain left-wing outlets have portrayed Argentina under his administration as being a disaster, and they're conveniently leaving out he inherited a disaster.
Yes. Yeah, because again, they're not being fair. All right, so let's go to our last one. Our last one that we're gonna do, and this
just happened.
The Olympic opening ceremony had nothing to do with the Last Supper. Okay, let me go ahead and try to steel man this argument. So there was one, I think it was a professor, it might have been a journalist, I can't remember. He did the best job I have seen so far of showing a picture of the actual pagan festival that had been represented. So there it is right there, right? So if you look over to the right, that's the
Explain
festival.
it for our audio listeners.
So if you look right at it, what it is you have a festival. It's a bunch of people sitting at a table doing various things. You have satyrs and stuff like that, which are mythical, like half, people, half goat, whatever. And it is very pagan, very, very, festival. And they're saying that is the only thing that they were trying to reflect over here. Here's the problem that I have with this. There is no question that the vast majority of people have never seen that other painting. Whereas just about everybody in the universe at some point in their life
has seen the Last
Supper. And there's no question that you would come to the conclusion if you were just looking at this and saying, oh, this is a rendition of the Last Supper. And then if you look at the response that you get from a combination of the Olympic Committee to some of the people that participated and everything else, there is no regret over you associating it with the Last Supper. And this is something where Alyssa Childers actually did a really good job kind of breaking this down, where it was like, look, guys, you can come up with whatever excuse you want on what you were actually trying to do. You cannot be so crazy as to honestly believe that people were not going to associate with the Last Supper. And if you were really concerned about it, like if you were genuinely, oh, we're sorry, you're offended, you would have said, hey, like everybody would have been reporting, this is a rendition of this particular thing or that particular thing, if that's what you wanted to do. But if you were questioning whether or not Christians might be a little sensitive right now with respect to what's going on in the world, it might have something to do with the fact that the left cannot wait with every possible thing that they do, whether it be in movies, whether it be at concerts, whether it be in songs, whether it be what's going on with schools, cannot wait to find a way to basically poke Christians in the eye. And then the moment we respond, go, it's not all about you, Christians. It was actually about this. It was actually about that. It's like, spare me. Spare me. I know you're lying, and here's how I know. Because if this had been something that looked anything like, let's say, an Islamic event. Now, Islamic doesn't do iconography the same way. They don't do like paintings of people, right, and stuff like that. Had you done something that would have been in any way, shape, or form associated with Islam, you would have either cut it from your ceremony, or you would have immediately come out and fired somebody and say, we apologize. This was not meant to. The Olympics is all about unity and bringing people together. We don't want anyone to feel excluded or certainly offended. But instead, it's just, we're the ones with the problem. And this goes back to the slap you, slap you, slap you, slap you. And then when they do, even if they don't slap you, right? Even if they just stop right there, it's like, well, why are you flinching? Why are you flinching? I wasn't going to hit you. Well, you did the last 5 times. So yeah, I assumed you were doing it this time. So again, the reason why I'm framing it up this way is because even if you accept the explanation, which I'm not entirely sure I do, but even if you accept the explanation, give me a break. You cannot continue to engage in the activity that you do, constantly flaunting things. You cannot have the Sisters of the Perpetual Indulgence opening up the Dodgers game in a predominantly Catholic place where they're making fun of Christ and nuns and the whole deal. And then when something like this happens, assume that we're all going to be, oh, that probably had nothing to do with us.
Well, I think it's really nice that professor came up with that nice little example. Oh, well, this is really what it is. And it's this festival of Bacchanal or whatever. Well, here's the problem with that. Like, I get it. You've got the blue guy. Okay. Yeah. So that does lend itself to that, but he wasn't lowered into that situation until after that picture was made. So they basically set it up that way and then lowered it like debased even further, basically. And here's how I know that professor is wrong, is because the people that put this on never mentioned a single time that that's what it really was. Well,
I think the Olympic Committee came out and said something about it.
No, well, after it was suggested. Oh, yeah. When they first came out, they were like, well, this is what our goal was, and we accomplished our goal, and if that offended you, we're sorry.
Yeah,
that was their apology. And so they didn't bring in the whole, oh, well, this is actually to depict this other thing until after it was already suggested to them to say that to save face. Anyway.
I think, yeah,
I look at this and I'm just going, you know, no wonder circuses don't exist anymore, really, barely, is because all the freaking freak show people are forced out there on the public stage for everyone to see. You don't have to go into some smoky tent to go see the bearded lady anymore.
What?
Like now they're dancing all over the place with like water and whatever. And
I had somebody comment.
Bearded dude.
When I post this, I had somebody comment and essentially say, you know, for those of you on the right that are clutching your pearls about this, which by the way, I find it very entertaining when the left accuses us of clutching their pearls when they have mental breakdowns if you don't use the proper pronouns or say that only women can get pregnant, right? When it comes to pearl clutching, we just don't measure up to you guys. Second of all, he went out and he explained how this is camp, right? This is this element of, provocative artwork that's meant to challenge your perceptions. And the whole thing with Marie Antoinette, and he described Marie Antoinette as Marie Antoinette was found guilty of treason and stealing from the people. And I remember looking back, I responded back, I said, if that's your complete understanding of the French Revolution's reign of terror, where they went around beheading everybody, to include eventually the guy that ran the reign of terror, Robespierre, you have a very superficial understanding, and maybe you shouldn't be lecturing the rest of us on what we understand about history and context. But this is, again, the reason why I think this is another one of those examples is because I think anybody with half a brain would have recognized that there was going to be a connection made here. I think they wanted to see the reaction. I think in some cases, the best argument is they baited a reaction. And then it's like, oh, look at you idiots. You just don't understand. It's like, no, we understand. We get it. Because this has been a common theme. And it's a common theme that is only allowed if it's directed toward Christianity. If it's mocking Christianity, it's allowed. And this is just part of a provocative art show. If it's anything else, it's completely unacceptable. And this goes back into what we kind of see throughout. We talk about this all, the oppressed oppressor narrative, because, Christians are evil oppressors, then it's okay to do this. And if it's anybody else, it's not okay to do that. And any sort of logical consistency across history or understanding context or narrative goes right out the window, and none of the fact checkers matter. None of them care anymore if they think they can get away with it, right?
I think even if this had nothing to do with Christianity at all, it's still a disgusting display of just such a freak show. Oh, wait, no. JD Vance is weird. JD Vance is the one who's weird, you guys, not these people.
The aristocrats of clown world want to say that we're the weirdos. No,
and there was even a child involved in that whole display.
So
that's another one where it's like, what is it with all these freaking people in drag with all these BDSM type things and their obsession with children? Yeah, Why are they bringing children into what they're doing all the time?
There's never drag queen story hour at the old folks' home. Right, it's only at like libraries for kids.
Or in prisons.
Yeah, or in prisons, right? Never drag queen story hour prisons. It's only for children, and there's a reason for that. Somebody tweeted out once, I can't remember who it was. He goes, it's just not that difficult. Some people are just evil and they want to diddle kids.
That was Arn McIntyre, who is that's now turned into the sign tapping meme.
Yeah,
where I've seen that pop up over and over and over again because he's right. Ultimately, McIntyre is correct with. There sometimes the simplest explanation is. There's a man, I love his takes, but there was there's one reporter who I do appreciate his takes from time to time, because I do think, even though I disagree with him on many things, I think he is intellectually consistent, and this is Glenn Greenwald, who, if you are old enough to remember, he used to be a darling of the left during the George Bush administration. Yeah. Greenwald was a fierce critic of Bush's administration. He was a fierce critic of the Iraq War. He identified as being on the left. Greenwald is also gay, but he has since now become an enemy of the left because he has applied the same sort of journalistic integrity that he did towards Bush. He did the same thing towards Obama, and now he's done the same thing towards Joe Biden. And so he's now become persona non grata. Well, he had this tweet at the beginning of the year. This was around the time when Trump was winning all the primaries in a landslide. He was being indicted, and the left kept basically saying, like, well, this guy's political career needs to be over because he's going to become a criminal. And Greenwald had this tweet, and he said, the massive and historic size of Trump's victory should lead to some self-reflection about what caused a complete collapse of faith in the legitimacy of U.S. institutions of authority and justice, whereby voters so easily disregard 4 felony cases as irrelevant, if not an asset. And I said something below this. Far be it me to shill my Twitter account, but I have to. It wouldn't be a making the argument episode if I didn't. I had this tweet that I think really encapsulates a lot of what we've just talked about today, where I replied to him and I said, there is zero trust in America's institutions precisely because the Gramsci-Duchke long march through the institutions was such a success. The left hijacked every institution in America and did what the left always does. Wielded them to reward their allies and punish their enemies. Eventually, this got to be so blatantly obvious that people simply stopped trusting and caring about said institutions. If you want examples of this, look at the total collapse in trust for things like the media, academia, Hollywood, and Wall Street. And this is why Trump has such a stable and loyal following. It actually has very little to do with Trump himself, yet many people cannot seem to connect the dots here. His enduring support is the logical consequence of the ongoing backlash against the left's ideological capture of nearly every institution in this country. Yuri Bezmenov tried to warn us about this more than 40 years ago, but the Soviets are now long gone. The progressive train has no brakes, and the phenomenon you are writing about here is going to continue to accelerate until something flies off the rails. I'd argue it already has begun to fly off the rails. Institutional trust will continue to collapse towards zero until someone finally puts an end to the madness.
Yeah. I think, I think when you look at the thing that I always kind of wondered was, would the media get to a point, or would some institutions, like I didn't have a lot of hope for MSNBC to, make a turnaround, but there was some question on whether or not organizations like CNN would and others. And it goes to the idea of ideological capture. And it also goes to the idea of people getting into institutions and kicking down the ladder or shutting the door behind them. And I think the left does this as whether you think it's trained behavior or instinctive or whatever it is, but you see this with HR departments. You see this with, like, where do you go with a gender studies degree? Like, where do you go? Like, you either go into academia or you go into the HR department, right? Because you're going to go ahead and decide all the policy for these businesses. And you actually saw somebody during the Canadian truckers strike or protest. She was HR. She actually got on to social media and said, for all of you Canadian truckers or people supporting them, I hope you scrub your social media because we watch it and we talk to each other and we'll make sure you never get hired. And it's like, yes, we knew you were doing that. Thank you very much for articulating it. But it just goes to this idea that it's not so much about, one of the ways that you take over an institution is you get within the positions of power that determine who gets into the institution. And I think you see that within a lot of these organizations, to where no diversity can be acceptable. No diversity can be allowed within them. It has to be, you have to be ideologically pure in order to get the position. And once you've reached that level, especially with something like journalism, you almost find yourself in a position where you are truly incapable of even beginning to understand the other side's perspective, because you've convinced yourself that it's oppressor and oppressed, good versus evil. And we're not talking about good versus evil in the objective sense where, yes, harming a child is evil. Well, now harming a child can simply be helping them at this point if they decide, because again, they fall within the oppressed category. And then the only other category available to the left is the ally. You can be the oppressed or you can be the ally. But if you want the benefit, if you want the superficial moral covering for whatever you do, whatever you say, whatever logical inconsistency you decide to engage in, you have to remain on the left. You can have all the experiences. You can grow up in poverty. You can grow up in abuse. You can rise above it. You can help others to do so. All things that J.D. Vance has been able to do. Do you get any sympathy from the left? Do you get anybody standing back and saying, hey, look, guys, this guy really is an example of being able to rise above circumstances and to be able to achieve something. And maybe this is something that, maybe this is the area we shouldn't attack him on. No, they have to attack him on that area. They have to attack the opposition on the most fundamental. There can't be anything about you that is good. You have to be bad. You have to be evil. You have to be the oppressor. And the less you fit into that category, the more the stories will show that you do. Experts say, we're all in agreement. That's the part that's dangerous about this. I said before, I don't fear the individual, and I don't. I don't fear an ideology that behaves this way, but I do want to properly articulate what it is. I do want to properly lay out exactly how it operates so that we can identify it, because you definitely don't want that ideology getting to a degree of power to where it attempts to impose its will. And it's already attempting to do that. And right now, it's primarily doing it through the institutions which currently exist. That's your arts and entertainment, your culturally shaping institutions, but increasingly it's becoming lawfare. And the lawfare isn't working for them the way they assumed it would. Because they read our playbook. Oh, you guys are predominantly for law and order. You guys predominantly believe in intellectual consistency and honesty. You predominantly believe in certain aspects, which we are now going to use against you when it suits us, and then jettison it or classify it as white supremacy or the patriarchy or evil or oppressor when it doesn't suit us. And you will go along with that because you have to, because you're intellectually honest, right? You're intellectually consistent. And what's happening is, and this is what Glenn Greenwald is pointing out here, is that many on the right have just finally said, fine, if this is the way the game is played, then we're going to send somebody that knows how to play the game. And we don't care. Well, what about that? You're a conservative. You're supposed to care about felony convictions. Not if you're manipulating the system in order to get them.
Not if the convictions are coming from you.
Yes.
That's the way to describe it. Because
but the problem is, it's not just that it's coming from the other side. It's the way in which they get them. It's the fact that they're willing to jettison it when it's their guy and do it when it's ours. And so fine, if this is the new rules, then you're right. The institutions no longer have meaning. The question is, what does the left do when they realize they don't care about the institutions with respect to their own system? They care about the institutions in relation to us caring about the institutions.
No. They care about the institutions insofar as the institutions enable them to acquire political power. They don't care about the institution insofar as what's in the best interest of preserving the legitimacy or the function of the institution. The only function of the institution that matters to the left is the function of acquiring political power.
No, that's my point. They don't it's not that they like the institution for the institution itself or what it actually provides within a free and open society. They care about it in relation to us caring about it. And
I disagree with you. I don't think that they only care about it insofar as we care about it. I think they care about the institution insofar as, is it a mechanism for them to obtain political power?
Christian, when they have absolute power, will they keep the institution?
Yeah, of course.
No, when they have absolute power, they will not keep the institution.
Have you ever seen an example of the left hijacking power and then discarding an institution?
They will fundamentally alter the institutions in ways that will bear no resemblance to its original place or meaning. That's my point.
Of course.
That's my point. Right? When I talk about the institutions that we're talking about, obviously they're not going to get rid of the institution of arts and entertainment, but will they fundamentally alter it in ways that bears no resemblance? They're not going to get rid of the institution of, a government. But would they completely gut the Constitution? Yes. Would they completely gut federalism? Yes. Would they completely gut? So they care about those institutions insofar as they can use them because we care about them, right? But at some point, if they either get power, they don't care about those institutions for their own sake.
Okay, so we are actually in agreement there. We are in agreement.
We're in agreement. So
I think that something needs to be said about how the strength of an institution, it doesn't lie in the name of the institution itself. It lies in the values that the institution is supposed to be upholding. And when those values are gone, to your point, right, about, well, the left doesn't actually care about the function of arts and entertainment or the media. They don't care about fact-based journalism. They care about using the media as a mechanism in order to obtain political power, even if it means destroying the legitimacy of it.
Yes.
Insofar as it gets the job done, which is getting political power, that's all that they care about. And as conservatives who naturally want to conserve things, although increasingly there's nothing left to conserve, we understand that the value of an institution, again, it doesn't lie in the mechanism to obtain power, and it doesn't lie in the name of the institution. It lies in what values the institution is supposed to be upholding. The reason that we get upset about media gaslighting is because the way that we view media is not a means to power. We view media as a means to inform, to educate, to discuss facts, to analyze them, to hold politicians accountable. They don't use it as that mechanism. They use it as a mechanism for power. And the tragedy in all, or the travesty in all of this, the tragedy in all of this, is that when an institution loses those values, the institution itself ceases to exist. Now, that does not mean that the need for the institution ceases to exist, right? So when I say the media has ceased to exist, that doesn't mean that the need for media has ceased to exist, which is increasingly why this podcast exists. It's why alternative forms of media exist. It's why that people go to X in order to get their news. It's why people go to YouTube in order to get their news, because the function that the media used to fill, that still needs to be filled, even if the media as an institution, as we know it, newspapers, TV, they're gone. They've lost all legitimacy, and we recognize that they've lost all legitimacy. The hope here, though, is that, you know what? There's now an opening for us to fill that with something that actually does fill that purpose.
I don't disagree. Well, everyone, we've gone through our ranking, and this, we didn't really rank them. We just said these are some of our favorite, instances of media gaslighting taking place. We hope you found them interesting as well. I'm sure we will get plenty of comments in the media, and we love that. Please do that. Also, we've got some other things coming up that are pretty exciting. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on some of our other episodes, some of the things that we're going to be doing with our community.
Is this where crafting the argument comes in?
No, this is not where crafting the argument comes in. But listen, once again, we want to thank everybody so much for watching and commenting. Again, it means a lot to us. We really appreciate it. We also want to encourage everybody to go over to our community chat, sign up for there under Circle. And don't forget, go over to trueclassic.com/Nick. Go over there, get some good items. By the way, when you shop through them, and especially when you use that promo code, it helps the show. So if you're looking for practical ways to help yourself and the show, that's a great way to do it. Once again, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next episode.